Welcome to the Deep Dive.
How to build wealth from zero.
And our mission today is to completely reverse engineer this blueprint. We are not looking at, get rich quick hacks or magic buttons here.
No, definitely not.
We are extracting the actual mechanical steps to transform you from a passive consumer into an active builder of your own financial empire.
Which is a huge shift.
Huge. Okay, let's unpack this. Where does someone actually begin if their bank account is sitting at absolute zero? What's the prerequisite step before you even attempt to make a single dollar?
Well, the prerequisite step actually has nothing to do with currency.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it happens entirely in your neurology. The core argument in this source is that poverty is not simply a metric of your bank balance.
Right.
Poverty is actually a deeply ingrained belief system. It's this internal narrative that constantly whispers that you're a victim of circumstance.
That wealth is just reserved for a lucky genetic elite or something.
Exactly. Or that money is this external force that happens to you rather than a tool that you actively direct. You have to understand that humans have this neurological preference for homeostasis. We like the familiar, even if the familiar is being broke.
Man, that makes the lottery winner statistic make total sense. It reminds me of, it's like a computer operating system.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
If your brain is walking around running, let's call it scarcity.exe as its baseline programming.
Right.
It literally does not matter what kind of financial data you try to download into it.
Yeah.
You drop a massive $1 million file onto that hard drive, and the system just doesn't know how to process it.
It panics.
It panics. It will literally crash the system. You'll start sabotaging investments, blowing cash on liabilities.
Just doing anything to revert back to the baseline it actually understands.
Yes. So you have to patch the software first.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how you actually rewrite that software. It starts entirely with your language.
Like the words you use every day.
Yeah. The material we're analyzing points out the massive cognitive difference between saying, I cannot afford it, and asking, how can I afford it?
Just changing a statement into a question.
Right, because when you say, I cannot afford it, you're making a declarative statement. Neurologically, your brain just shuts down.
The problem is solved.
Exactly. Case closed. No further energy required. But when you ask, how can I afford it, you actually trigger your prefrontal cortex.
Oh, wow.
You force your brain into a state of active problem solving. It shifts you from being, a passive victim of your bank account into an active strategist.
I hear you, but conceptually, if someone listening is struggling to pay rent right now, telling them to just change in their mindset can feel a bit hollow.
Oh, sure.
It feels like we're saying their financial reality is just an illusion.
And that's a fair pushback,
Yeah.
but it's crucial to separate your current reality from your trajectory. Your current empty bank account is a fact,
Right.
but your belief that it will always be empty, that is the software bug.
I see the distinction.
Because if you're terrified of taking a risk because it might lead to failure, you'll never attempt the very actions required to build wealth. In the scarcity mindset, a failure is like a moral judgment.
It means you are a failure.
Exactly. But in the wealth mindset, failure is just raw data. It's A/B testing.
You tried a business model, it didn't work, you collected the data, and you iterate.
Precisely. You cannot create a new financial reality while holding on to the identity of someone who avoids discomfort at all costs.
Okay, so let's say you successfully patch the software. You delete scarcity.exe. You stop fearing failure, and you're ready to build.
You're ready to go.
Right. But if your internal operating system is fixed, you can still drive straight off a cliff if you're following a fundamentally flawed map.
Oh, completely.
And that brings us to the elephant in the room, which is the traditional education system, where almost all of us got our first financial map.
Yeah, and the material delivers a rather brutal diagnosis of the traditional school system here.
It really does.
We are conditioned from childhood to believe in a very linear equation, right? Study hard, memorize the curriculum, get a piece of paper, and financial security will automatically follow.
But if we look around, we see millions of highly educated, brilliantly credentialed people who are just drowning in consumer debt.
Drowning in it and living paycheck to paycheck.
Because school is teaching you the wrong mechanics. It teaches you how to memorize the lineage of ancient kings.
Right.
Or how to calculate the area of a trapezoid.
Which is super helpful for most of us.
Oh, totally. But it never teaches you the mechanics of cash flow, or how to read a balance sheet,
or how to calculate a return on investment. And furthermore, it actively punishes failure.
Right. In school, getting an F is the absolute worst possible outcome.
But as we just discussed, in the real world of wealth building, Failing is the exact mechanism by which you learn to succeed.
Exactly.
And that conditioning, waiting for a syllabus, asking for permission to speak, accepting a standardized test score as a measure of your market value.
It doesn't prepare you for reality.
No, it does not prepare you for the chaotic, dynamic world of wealth creation. It trains you to seek the illusion of safety.
And in our society, that safety usually looks like relying entirely on a single paycheck from a single employer.
Yeah, it's an industrial-era model designed to produce obedient workers, not independent wealth creators.
Wait, let me stop you right there and play devil's advocate for the listener.
Sure, go for it.
Are we essentially saying that going to school, getting a degree, and trying to master an academic field is a complete waste of time? Like, should everyone listening just drop out and start a business?
Not at all. That is a really dangerous misinterpretation.
Okay, good. Clarify that.
The argument here is not that the school system is broken or useless. The insight is that the school system is working exactly as it was engineered to work. It was designed to make you employable. Academic knowledge is a highly effective tool that opens doors to lucrative jobs.
But it gets you in the building.
Exactly. But you have to recognize its limits. Academic knowledge makes you an employee. Self-taught financial education makes you free.
I love that distinction.
The diploma might get you a high-paying role inside the building. But it's your financial education that dictates whether you spend 40 years working in that cubicle or if you eventually buy the entire building.
Right. The diploma gets you the cash flow, but the financial literacy tells you what to actually do with it.
Precisely.
So if the school textbook is the wrong manual, what replaces it? I mean, we all know the basic, like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad 101 stuff.
Buy assets, avoid liabilities.
Right. But for a financially literate audience in 2026, what does this core mechanic actually look like?
Well, it requires a deeper understanding of what an asset truly is today.
Okay.
The fundamental rule remains the same. An asset puts money in your pocket whether you are awake or asleep, and a liability bleeds you.
Right.
But the trap of the modern, middle-class professional, the doctor, the lawyer, the senior engineer, is that they generate massive active income.
And then they immediately convert it into high-end liabilities.
Yes. They buy the luxury vehicle on finance, the oversized mortgage, the designer watches.
And they classify these things as assets just because they have a high price tag.
Exactly.
And unless that luxury car is being, like, rented out to a production studio for a daily fee, it is not an asset.
Not at all.
It is an actively depreciating block of metal that requires insurance, maintenance, and interest payments. There's actually a specific visual from the text that perfectly captures this, and I want to emphasize it.
The army analogy.
Yes. You have to treat every single dollar you earn as a soldier in your personal army.
I love this one.
You are the commanding general. When you get paid, you have a fresh battalion of troops. You can deploy those soldiers into the field to capture more territory.
Meaning you buy dividend stocks, rental properties, or digital IP that produce more soldiers.
Exactly. Or you can send them into a meat grinder to be captured and destroyed by buying a liability.
Yeah.
Every time you buy something you don't actually need, just to impress people you don't even like, you are intentionally leading your own troops into a financial ambush.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this soldier analogy perfectly illustrates the mathematics of compounding.
Right, the snowball effect.
Yeah, it's not just about money sitting in a bank account growing by like 3%. It's about exponential expansion. A disciplined block of capital today, placed in the right vehicle, snowballs.
And in 2026, the definition of those vehicles has really expanded, hasn't it?
Oh, hugely. Yes, it's real estate and equities, but it's also code, media, and digital audiences.
So you are shifting your entire identity.
Exactly. You walk into a room no longer asking, what can I consume here, but rather, what value can I build and own here?
Okay, let me interject. This all sounds mechanically perfect. You get the cash, you draft the soldiers, you buy the assets, you let them compound.
Right.
But the promise of this deep dive is building wealth from zero.
Yes. The zero problem.
Right. If your pockets are totally empty right now, or worse, if you're actively in debt, you don't have a battalion. You don't even have a single scout.
No, you really don't.
How do you start this machine if you possess absolute zero capital?
This is perhaps the most critical threshold to cross. When you lack financial capital, you must leverage your human capital.
Your human capital.
Yeah, your mind, your hands, and your specific knowledge. These are the most potent, underrated forms of seed capital in existence.
Because the market doesn't reward waiting.
No, the market does not care about your bank balance. The market pays for value. And in the modern economy, every single person possesses a monetizable skill.
Exactly. You could be copywriting, UX design, back-end coding, video editing, or even just being ruthlessly efficient at organizing chaotic databases.
Yes, whatever it is. And historically, you were bottlenecked by your local geography.
Right. If you were the best graphic designer in a small town, your income was capped by the local businesses willing to hire you.
But the internet has completely obliterated geographic borders. If you can solve the problem, there is a global market of billions where someone is actively searching for your exact solution.
But here is the mechanical transition from just, having a side hustle to actually building wealth. Productization.
Productization, yes. If you just take your skill and freelance it by the hour, you have simply created a second job for yourself.
You are still trapped by the physics of time. There are only 24 hours in a day.
Exactly. To scale from zero, you must package your skill into a scalable digital product.
So you turn your UX design knowledge into a downloadable template.
Or you turn your coding expertise into a SaaS plugin.
Right, or your organizational skills into a comprehensive video course.
By doing this, you detach your income from your time. You build the asset once, and the marginal cost of selling it 1,000 times is essentially zero.
So what does this all mean for the listener right now who is nodding along, but inside they're just crippled by imposter syndrome? They're thinking, I'm not an expert yet. I don't have a PhD in this. Who am I to charge money for a digital product?
Well, the brutal, liberating truth is that the market does not care about your imposter syndrome.
It really doesn't.
It only cares if your product solves its problem. And more importantly, you will never feel completely ready.
Never.
That desire for absolute certainty before taking action, that is just your brain's scarcity.exe trying to protect you from failure again.
Wow, yeah.
The act of starting is the very mechanism that creates the readiness. You don't need to be the global expert.
You just need to be one chapter ahead of the person you're teaching.
Exactly. You build quietly, you launch a beta product, you collect the raw data of customer feedback, and you iterate.
You relentlessly improve the personal brand until your name equals undeniable quality.
Right?
All right, so let's track the progress here. You've patched your mindset.
Okay.
You ignored this school system's demand that you just be a passive employee.
Check.
You utilized your human capital. You productized your skill. And now it's working. You've got cash flow.
You've drafted your first real financial soldiers.
Yes. But if you take all your energy and rely solely on that one successful digital product or that one freelance client,
you are essentially recreating the exact vulnerability of the rat race.
right, you're still vulnerable.
Precisely. Which brings us to the architectural phase of wealth, the fortress of multiple income streams.
The fortress.
True financial security does not exist in a vacuum of a single high-yielding asset. Relying on one source of income, whether it's a salary or a single successful SaaS product, is catastrophic risk management.
Because if the algorithm changes,
Or the industry pivots.
that single stream dries up and you go straight back to zero.
Exactly. And the data supports this heavily. The average self-made millionaire has at least 7 distinct streams of income.
7. So we're talking like active earned income from a primary business, profit from digital sales, interest from lending,
Dividend yields from equities, rental income from real estate.
capital gains, and royalties from intellectual property.
Yes, all of those. But I want to highlight a massive warning sign from our sources today.
Oh, definitely.
Do not dramatically quit your day job the second you make your first dollar online.
Right, that burn the boats mentality is highly romanticized, but it's an incredibly dangerous myth.
It often leads to desperate, poor decision-making. Your single primary paycheck should not be despised. It is your baseline structural support.
You use the predictability of that single paycheck to comfortably fund the aggressive creation of your other streams.
Exactly. Build the fortress before you leave the castle.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Once those streams start flowing and you accumulate real capital, you cross this invisible threshold into the realm where the wealthy actually play.
Yes, the rules change entirely.
The fundamental rules of money that middle-class society preaches, they don't apply here, they bend. Let's talk about debt.
Oh, debt. Society says debt is an absolute evil, avoid at all costs, pay off your credit cards, pay off your house immediately.
Right, because consumer debt, like borrowing at 20% interest to buy a depreciating liability.
That is financial suicide.
Total suicide. But the wealthy view debt not as a trap, but as a mechanical lever.
They utilize leverage. If you can borrow capital from a bank at a 4% interest rate, and you use that capital to acquire an asset that yields an 8% return.
You're keeping the spread.
Exactly. You are using other people's money to generate your own wealth.
And furthermore, in an inflationary environment, the actual purchasing power of the debt you owe is melting away over time.
While the asset you bought is appreciating.
It's a dual-engine wealth creator. It is mathematical leverage.
It really is.
And we can't talk about the rules bending without talking about the aerodynamics of wealth, which is taxation. Now, a massive disclaimer here.
Yes, very important.
We are not CPAs and we are not giving tax advice. We are simply analyzing the structural reality presented in our material today.
Right. And for the average W-2 employee, taxes are basically blunt force trauma.
Yeah. You earn money, the government immediately takes its 30% off the top, and you try to build a life with what's left.
But the architecture of the tax code is vastly different for business owners and investors. You have to think of the tax code not as a punishment, but as a map of government incentives.
Right, because they want specific things to happen.
Exactly. The government wants housing built, they want jobs created, they want energy developed. If you align your investments to solve those problems...
The government actually rewards you by legally reducing your tax drag.
Precisely. You earn the money, you legally deduct the expenses required to grow the business or acquire the asset, and you only pay taxes on the net remainder.
So you are paying taxes after you have reinvested in your own growth, unlike employees.
Yes. Understanding these mechanisms is what separates making money from actually keeping it.
Which raises an important point about how we view the concept of risk in our society.
It really does. This raises an important question for you, the listener. How do you actually define safety?
Because we are conditioned to believe that the traditional path trading 40 hours of your week for a completely predictable, fixed salary is the safe route.
But is it? When your entire livelihood, your mortgage, your family's healthcare is tied to the mood of a single executive board.
Or the quarterly earnings of one corporation. That is arguably the most terrifying risk profile imaginable.
Exactly. True safety isn't a guaranteed biweekly deposit from a corporation. True safety is diversification.
Having capital flowing toward you from multiple independent directions.
Yes. If one stream gets blocked, the others continue to flow. As the material illustrates so well, when these diverse streams finally merge, they form a river.
And that river eventually becomes an ocean of capital that cannot easily be drained. So what does this all mean? The ultimate destination of this blueprint isn't just seeing a high score in your banking app.
No, it's the transition from labor to leverage.
Your objective is no longer figuring out how to work harder or longer hours. It is figuring out how to completely divorce your income from your physical time.
It's buying your life back, because time is the only truly finite asset in this equation.
Right. You can always draft more financial soldiers, but you cannot purchase a single second of yesterday.
So true. The moment your passive and leveraged income streams surpass your living expenses, you have achieved absolute financial independence.
You are no longer required to trade your life energy for survival. Escaping this rat race mentality is the whole point.
It is.
Okay, let's pull back and look at the complete map we've constructed today. Building wealth from absolute zero does not start with a stock tip.
No, it starts with a total neurological rewrite. Deleting the scarcity software and recognizing that failure is just data collection.
Right. Then, you actively reject the school system's programming that demands you be a passive worker waiting for instructions.
Instead, you inventory your human capital.
You take your specific skills, you productize them for a global internet economy, and you draft your first financial soldiers.
And you ruthlessly deploy those soldiers to capture assets, completely ignoring the flashy liabilities that trap everyone else.
And finally, you construct a fortress. You build multiple streams of income, utilizing the mechanical leverage of debt and the aerodynamic advantages of the tax code.
Until your money flows while you sleep.
It is a profound paradigm shift. You transition from being a pawn maneuvered by someone else's economic requirements
to becoming the player who writes the rules of their own game.
Yes. The map is now in your hands. You are no longer staring at a locked door without the passcode. You have the combination.
How you allocate your time, your focus, and your energy from this exact moment forward will determine which reality you inhabit.
But before we close out this deep dive, there's one final philosophical implication of this material that we want you to mull over as you start drafting your army today.
Yes.
Right.
Consider the macro-level impact of this blueprint. The entire strategy we've unpacked relies on escaping the traditional rat race.
Right.
It relies on individuals upgrading their skills, leveraging technology, detaching their income from their time, and becoming asset-owning creators rather than hourly laborers.
Think about the physical infrastructure of our world.
What happens to the global economy if everyone successfully applies this exact blueprint?
If everyone listening becomes a digital entrepreneur and an investor, who is left to do the trading of hours for dollars?
Whose time is left to buy? Who keeps the supply chains moving, the hospitals running, and the physical world operating?
Right. Does the puzzle completely change its shape just as humanity figures out how to solve it? If the rat race empties out, does the fundamental nature of the global economy have to evolve?
It's a huge question.
Something for you to think about as you start building your own empire today. Until next time, keep digging deeper.